Imagine yourself standing at a crossroads in life. The path that once seemed smooth and clear now feels littered with obstacles, and the weight pressing on your shoulders feels unbearable. Every step forward becomes a struggle, and the future seems shrouded in uncertainty. Have you ever found yourself in such a place where bad days pile up endlessly, and no matter what you do, you can't shake the feeling that something is just not right? We all encounter moments like these, times when life refuses to follow our plans and everything seems to unravel. It might be the sudden loss of someone dear, a personal setback that shakes your confidence, or simply the crushing weight of everyday stress. But here's an important question. How do we survive these moments? How do we pull ourselves out of the darkness and come through stronger, wiser, and more at peace? Imagine if there were a way to understand these difficult times, not as enemies to be feared or escaped, but as teachers offering profound lessons. What if the key to healing lies not in avoiding pain, but in embracing it with acceptance and discovering peace within the storm? That's exactly the journey we're about to explore. Buddhism, with its deep and practical wisdom, offers guidance on navigating life's toughest phases. These teachings are not just abstract ideas. They are practical tools that can transform how we experience hardship and help us grow through it. If you're seeking answers and comfort, you've come to the right place. I invite you to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, because while many watch, only a small fraction choose to join this community of growth and reflection. Your support means the world, and your thoughts enrich the conversation, so please share them below. Now, together, let's journey into the heart of Buddhist teachings on surviving life's hardest phases. Stay with us, and remember, even in the darkest times, there is always a path forward, a path toward growth, healing, and inner peace. The first step on this path is acceptance. Life has a way of throwing challenges at us when we least expect them. Sometimes these challenges feel so overwhelming that we can't help but wonder how we'll ever make it through. But what if the key to surviving these difficult times wasn't about fighting the storm? What if the first step to healing was something simple, yet powerful: acceptance? Acceptance doesn't mean giving up or resigning ourselves to pain. It means acknowledging what is without resistance. It's about recognizing that life, with all its ups and downs, is full of both joy and suffering. And rather than avoiding or denying the tough times, we embrace them with an open heart and a clear mind. This is one of the core teachings in Buddhism, accepting what is without judgment, without resistance, and without clinging to the idea that things should be different. When we resist the inevitable, we only create more suffering for ourselves. It's like trying to hold back a wave in the ocean. The more we fight, the more exhausted we become, and the wave just keeps coming. But when we allow the wave to wash over us, we realize it's not as terrifying as we imagined. Acceptance is not about passivity. It's about surrendering to the present moment just as it is. Take a moment to think about your own life. How often do you resist what's happening? Perhaps you're going through a difficult time right now, or you've faced challenges in the past that seemed impossible to bear. How did you respond? Did you try to push away the pain, or did you face it with openness? If you're like most people, you probably tried to fight it, and understandably so. After all, no one wants to suffer. But the more we resist, the longer we prolong our pain. Buddha taught that suffering is a part of life, and the more we resist it, the more we feed it. However, if we accept it as a natural part of our human experience, we free ourselves from its hold. Acceptance allows us to move forward, to heal, and to find peace even in the midst of hardship. It's not about giving up. It's about letting go of our need to control everything. Let's look at a simple example. Imagine you've lost something important to you, maybe a job, a relationship, or even your health. The natural reaction is to feel grief, anger, or fear. These emotions are a normal part of being human, and it's okay to feel them. However, many of us unknowingly hold on to these emotions for far longer than necessary. We cling to anger, resentment, or regret, thinking that by doing so we can somehow change what happened. But the truth is, the past is already gone. Holding on to it only keeps us stuck in a place of suffering. In Buddhism, there is a powerful practice called mindfulness that teaches us to bring our attention to the present moment. Mindfulness invites us to observe our thoughts and feelings without judgment. Through this simple yet profound awareness, we begin to see that our negative emotions, no matter how overwhelming, are not permanent. They rise, they peak, and then they pass. With this understanding, we can move through even the most difficult emotions without being consumed by them. We don't resist or deny what we feel. Instead, we notice, we allow, and we trust that these emotions, like clouds in the sky, will eventually drift away. It's important to understand that acceptance does not mean we have to like the situation we're in. It doesn't mean we give up or pretend everything is okay. Acceptance means seeing reality clearly as it is, without trying to change it or push it away. It's about giving ourselves the freedom to feel what we feel, without guilt, shame, or judgment. There's a well-known story in Buddhism of a monk who was asked to explain the concept of acceptance. In response, he simply held out his open hand and said, "This is the hand of acceptance." In his hand there was nothing, no control, no grasping, no resistance. Just openness. That gesture is the heart of acceptance, welcoming whatever life brings, whether joy or sorrow, with a quiet strength and an open heart. The practice of acceptance is not always easy. It requires time, patience, and a willingness to sit with discomfort. But the more we practice, the more natural it becomes. We begin to see that suffering is not something we need to avoid or fight. It's something we can meet with understanding. And in that understanding, something shifts. We stop being ruled by our pain. We stop fearing it. We begin to move through it, gently, wisely, and with strength. When we accept our pain, we transform it, not by changing what happened, but by changing how we relate to it. And in doing so, we reclaim our peace. In Buddhist teachings, there's a concept called the middle path. The middle path is about finding balance in life, avoiding both extremes of indulgence and self-denial. When it comes to difficult times, the middle path involves accepting what is without clinging to it or pushing it away. It's about finding peace in the present moment, no matter what that moment brings. Think about it. When we stop fighting against our pain and instead allow ourselves to feel it fully, we can begin to understand it. Pain, when acknowledged and accepted, often reveals valuable lessons about ourselves. It shows us what we need to heal, what we value, and what we may need to let go of. Without acceptance, we remain in a state of resistance, unable to learn from our experiences. One of the greatest gifts of acceptance is that it frees us from the need to control everything around us. We can't control the weather, other people's actions, or even the events that happen in our lives, but we can control how we respond. Acceptance teaches us that while we can't change the external world, we can change how we relate to it. By accepting the present moment as it is, we open ourselves up to the possibility of change. It's only when we stop fighting that we make space for healing. Healing doesn't always happen overnight, and it doesn't happen in a straight line. But with acceptance, we begin the journey of moving through pain with grace and finding peace amidst the chaos. In times of difficulty, remember that acceptance is the first step toward healing. It's not about passively accepting a life of suffering, but rather accepting the challenges that come with life and using them as an opportunity to grow. By embracing acceptance, we take our first step toward freedom from the suffering that once seemed so overwhelming. As we continue this journey together, keep this in mind. Acceptance doesn't make the pain go away, but it allows us to live with it more peacefully. It doesn't mean we stop caring or trying to improve our circumstances, but it means we let go of the constant struggle. And in that release, we find the space to heal, to grow, and to find strength in the face of adversity. The power of mindfulness in difficult times. Imagine waking up in the middle of a storm. The winds are howling, the rain is pouring down, and the noise of the world is deafening. It feels like everything is out of control. Now imagine if, in the midst of all this chaos, you could find a place of calm within yourself. A place where the storm no longer has power over you. This is the power of mindfulness, and it can transform your experience in even the most difficult times. Mindfulness is simply the practice of being fully present in the moment, without judgment. It's about observing your thoughts, emotions, and surroundings with awareness rather than being swept away by them. In moments of struggle, mindfulness can be a lifeline. It allows you to step back from the emotional turbulence and see things clearly without getting caught up in the pain or frustration of the moment. When you're mindful, you stop reacting automatically to situations, and instead you choose how to respond with clarity and wisdom. The beauty of mindfulness is that it doesn't require you to escape from your problems or run away from the discomfort. Instead, it encourages you to embrace what's happening right now. It teaches you to accept the present moment exactly as it is without resistance. This doesn't mean you have to like what's happening or agree with it, but it means you stop fighting against it. And in that acceptance, you begin to find peace. You might be wondering, how can mindfulness really help in a tough time? Let me share an example. Imagine you're facing a difficult situation at work where you feel overwhelmed, stressed, and maybe even helpless. Without mindfulness, you might react by getting angry, frustrated, or anxious. You might even spiral into negative thinking, convinced that things will never improve. But with mindfulness, you can pause for a moment. You can take a deep breath and ground yourself in the present moment. Instead of letting your emotions control you, you let them come and go without attaching to them. It's like standing on the edge of a river, watching the current rush by. You don't need to jump in and let the current carry you away. Instead, you stand at the riverbank and simply observe. You notice the flow of the water, the way the waves ripple and move, but you remain rooted and steady, unaffected by the force of the current. This is what mindfulness can help you do with your emotions and thoughts during difficult times. You learn to observe them without being swept away. It's important to understand that mindfulness is not a one-time fix. It's a practice, a way of living. The more you practice being present in your daily life, the more you strengthen your ability to stay calm and centered when challenges arise. Mindfulness teaches you that your thoughts and emotions are not who you are. They are simply temporary experiences that come and go. You are the observer of them, not the prisoner of them. Many people think that mindfulness is about clearing the mind of all thoughts, but that's not the case. It's about becoming aware of your thoughts and emotions without getting entangled in them. For example, when you feel anxious or sad, instead of immediately reacting to these feelings, you simply notice them. Ah, there's anxiety, you might say to yourself. Ah, there's sadness. This simple act of noticing creates distance between you and your emotions, allowing you to experience them without being overwhelmed by them. When you practice mindfulness, you also develop a sense of compassion, both for yourself and for others. You begin to see that everyone goes through difficult times. You understand that suffering is a part of the human experience, and you become kinder to yourself when you're struggling. Instead of being hard on yourself or feeling like you're failing, mindfulness allows you to treat yourself with patience and understanding. In times of crisis, when everything seems uncertain, mindfulness helps you focus on what you can control: your breath, your thoughts, your actions. It brings you back to the present moment, where you have the power to respond with wisdom and grace. You realize that no matter what's happening around you, you always have the ability to choose how you respond. And this realization is incredibly empowering. Mindfulness also helps you break the cycle of negative thinking. When things are tough, it's easy to get stuck in a loop of self-doubt, fear, and worry. Your mind spins with all the what-ifs and worst-case scenarios, but mindfulness teaches you to step out of that cycle. It teaches you to observe your thoughts without getting caught up in them. Over time, you begin to recognize that most of your worries are just stories your mind tells you. They're not necessarily true, and they don't have to control you. One of the most powerful aspects of mindfulness is its ability to anchor you in the present. In a world where we're constantly looking to the future or ruminating about the past, mindfulness brings you back to the here and now. It helps you find peace in the present moment, no matter what's happening around you. It teaches you that this moment right now is all you ever truly have, and in that moment, you can choose to be at peace, even if everything else is in chaos. As you begin to embrace mindfulness, you may start to notice small shifts in how you react to life's challenges. Instead of getting caught up in frustration or panic, you find yourself taking a deep breath and responding with more clarity and calm. You may approach difficult situations with greater patience and understanding, not just toward others, but toward yourself as well. Mindfulness teaches the value of slowing down. In our fast-paced world, it's easy to rush through life, constantly checking off tasks and to-do lists. But mindfulness invites you to pause and savor the present. It encourages you to take notice of the small things, the warmth of the sun, the sound of birds, the taste of your food. These seemingly simple moments can bring a deep sense of peace, even during times of struggle. Incorporating mindfulness into your life doesn't require a major time commitment. You can begin with small moments of awareness during daily activities, walking, eating, or even washing dishes. As you grow more mindful in those ordinary moments, you'll find that presence and calm start to carry over into more difficult situations. It's important to remember that mindfulness isn't about avoiding your problems or pretending everything is okay. It's about facing challenges with honesty and compassion. It's about allowing yourself to feel pain, fear, or anger without being consumed by those emotions. Mindfulness gives you the space to respond rather than react, to witness your experience without judgment, and to discover peace in the present. So when you find yourself in a hard moment, take a breath. Come back to now. Observe your feelings without clinging to them. You may find the storm is not as overwhelming as it once seemed. And even if the storm is fierce, you'll know that you have the strength to stand in the middle of it, grounded in the stillness within. Mindfulness isn't just a survival tool, it's a way of life, a life filled with more peace, compassion, and awareness. Through it, you realize that while you can't always choose your circumstances, you can always choose how you meet them. That choice, that moment of awareness, is where true peace begins. Letting go of resistance and control is the next part of this journey. Life often feels like a constant struggle to manage and predict everything: our relationships, our careers, our health, even our thoughts. We believe that if we can just keep everything under control, we'll feel safe and happy. But life doesn't work that way. Things fall apart, plans change, people leave. And when that happens, resistance kicks in. We push back, we hold on. We try to force life to match our expectations. Yet the more we resist, the more we suffer. The more tightly we grip, the more things slip through our fingers. This resistance is rooted in fear, the fear of uncertainty, of pain, of not being enough. But Buddhism teaches that clinging only deepens our suffering. True freedom comes from letting go. It doesn't mean giving up. It means surrendering our need to control what we cannot control and trusting that we can meet life as it comes. Letting go is not weakness. It's courage. It's strength. It's a radical act of acceptance. It allows us to open our hands, our hearts, and our lives to something greater than our fear. When we stop resisting, we make space for peace. We stop fighting reality and begin to live in harmony with it. We learn to trust the flow of life, to ride the waves rather than be drowned by them. So the next time you feel yourself tightening, grasping, or resisting, pause. Ask yourself, what am I trying to control right now? What am I afraid of letting go? And then breathe, release, trust. This is not the end. This is the beginning of living with more freedom, ease, and grace. Buddhism teaches us that resistance is one of the greatest sources of suffering. The more we resist life, the more we suffer. Imagine trying to swim against a strong current. The harder you swim, the more exhausted you become, and the less likely you are to reach your destination. This is how we are when we resist the natural flow of life. But what if, instead of resisting, we learn to let go? What if instead of fighting life, we embrace it? Buddhism doesn't suggest that we should passively accept everything that comes our way. Rather, it invites us to let go of the need to control everything, to accept things as they are, and to find peace within that acceptance. This is not about giving up or resigning ourselves to a life of helplessness. It's about recognizing that there are things beyond our control, and that's okay. When we stop resisting, we stop creating unnecessary stress and frustration. We stop wasting energy on things that don't serve us. Instead, we free ourselves to respond with clarity, understanding, and compassion. Letting go of resistance does not mean we stop caring or stop trying. It means that we stop trying to force outcomes and instead focus on what we can control: our thoughts, our actions, and our responses. We begin to trust in the natural flow of life, understanding that not everything is meant to be controlled. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is to surrender to what is. Imagine a tree in the wind. The tree doesn't fight the wind. It bends and sways with it, moving in harmony with the forces around it. The tree doesn't waste energy fighting the wind. It flows with it. This is what we can learn from nature. Life is like the wind, constantly changing, unpredictable, and at times overwhelming. But when we stop resisting and allow ourselves to bend and flow with it, we find a sense of peace and calm amidst the chaos. Letting go also means letting go of our attachment to outcomes. How often do we find ourselves fixated on a particular result? We set goals, make plans, and imagine how things should unfold. But life is rarely as predictable as we want it to be. When things don't go as expected, we often feel disappointed, angry, or defeated. But Buddhism teaches us that attachment to outcomes is a major cause of suffering. When we attach ourselves too tightly to a specific result, we set ourselves up for disappointment. Instead, we are encouraged to focus on the present moment and the process itself. When we let go of our attachment to how things should be, we can enjoy the journey without being burdened by the weight of expectations. We stop living in the future or the past and start fully embracing the now. Letting go also means releasing our attachment to our self-image. How often do we define ourselves by what we have or haven't accomplished? We base our worth on external achievements, on how others see us, or on the standards we set for ourselves. But when we let go of this attachment to our identity, we can experience a deeper sense of freedom. We are not our achievements or failures. We are not our roles, our titles, or our possessions. We are simply beings in the process of becoming. When we let go, we create space for something new. It's like clearing out old furniture to make room for fresh air. We make space for growth, for healing, and for new opportunities. Life is constantly changing. When we hold on too tightly to the past or to what we think should be, we limit our ability to grow. But when we let go of resistance, we open ourselves up to the possibilities that life has to offer. The more we practice letting go, the more we begin to trust in the natural unfolding of life. We no longer see obstacles as threats, but as opportunities to learn and grow. We stop fighting against the current of life and instead begin to flow with it. This doesn't mean we become passive or indifferent. It means we learn to navigate life with wisdom, patience, and equanimity. It's important to remember that letting go is not a one-time event. It's a practice, something we return to again and again. There will always be moments when we feel the urge to control, to resist, to fight. But when we recognize that resistance is the source of our suffering, we can gently remind ourselves to let go. And with time, we will begin to experience the peace and freedom that come from surrender. So the next time you find yourself struggling, ask yourself, am I resisting? What would happen if I let go? When you let go of resistance, you open yourself to the possibility of transformation. You free yourself from the chains of expectation and control, and you allow life to unfold in its own beautiful way. Remember, letting go is not weakness, it is strength. It takes courage to release what we cannot control and trust in the flow of life. When we stop resisting, we create space for peace, for growth, and for a deeper connection to the world around us. Karma and the law of cause and effect. Let me tell you something very simple, yet profound. Every action we take, no matter how small, sends ripples out into the world. Imagine a pebble thrown into a still pond. At first, the ripples seem small, insignificant even, but slowly they spread across the surface, touching every corner of the water. In the same way, our thoughts, words, and actions create ripples in our lives, influencing not only our present moment, but our future as well. This, my friend, is the essence of karma. Karma is often misunderstood. It's not some cosmic punishment system, nor is it about rewards or consequences in the way we might think. Instead, karma is the natural law of cause and effect. It's simple. Every cause has an effect. Every action we take leads to a result, whether we see it immediately or not. The beauty of this is that we have control over the causes, the actions. We are the architects of our own fate. In moments of hardship, when you feel lost or overwhelmed by the weight of life's challenges, it's important to remember that the suffering you might be experiencing could be the result of actions from your past. Perhaps there are past decisions or unresolved emotions that are now coming to fruition. But this is not a punishment. It's just a natural consequence of the choices we make. The important part is understanding that we are not bound by this. Just as we created the cause for our current situation, we can change the course by changing the causes we set today. Think about a time in your life when you felt hurt or betrayed. Perhaps someone's actions left you feeling broken. But here's the thing. When we experience such pain, it's easy to focus solely on the other person, blaming them for how we feel. But in the larger picture, karma is telling us something different. It's reminding us that everything that happens is interconnected, and our reactions to those situations matter just as much. How we choose to respond to life's challenges, whether with anger, forgiveness, or understanding, shapes our future. Forgiveness, for example, is a powerful force in karma. When you forgive, you are not doing it for the other person. You are doing it for yourself. When we hold on to resentment, it's like carrying a heavy burden. The weight of anger or hurt from the past prevents us from moving forward. But by forgiving, we lighten that load, allowing ourselves to experience peace. And guess what? This act of forgiveness, however difficult, creates positive ripples in our lives. It starts to heal the wounds of the past and lays the foundation for better things to come. Karma teaches us that we are always in the process of creating, whether we are aware of it or not. Every thought we think, every word we speak, and every action we take is planting a seed for the future. And just as a farmer tends to their crops with care and attention, so too must we tend to the seeds we are planting in our minds and hearts. If you want to experience peace, happiness, and fulfillment, you must sow those seeds now through loving thoughts, kind words, and compassionate actions. Sometimes the weight of our past actions can seem too heavy to bear. You may feel as though you are paying for mistakes long gone, but here's the truth. The past is over. What matters now is what you do with this moment. the one you have right in front of you. Every moment is a chance to change the course of your life. Every action you take today is creating your tomorrow. If you want to experience something different, you must begin by thinking, speaking, and acting differently. Karma is not about destiny or fate. It's about free will. It's about understanding that we have the power to shape our future with every choice we make today. If you're in a difficult phase of life, it's important to reflect on the actions that brought you here. Are there patterns of behavior that have led to your suffering? Are there unresolved issues that need attention? Recognizing these patterns is the first step toward breaking them. For instance, if you find yourself constantly struggling with relationships, it's worth looking at how you've contributed to the dynamics in your life. Are you truly being open and honest with others, or do you shut yourself off out of fear? Are you acting with compassion, or are you acting out of selfishness or insecurity? The way we treat others often reflects the way we treat ourselves. Karma teaches us that the energy we put out into the world comes back to us in ways big and small. But here's the most powerful part of karma. Change is always possible. No matter where you are in life, no matter what actions you've taken in the past, you can start anew. It's never too late to plant a new seed, to make a different choice. The law of karma is not a strict punishment system. It's a tool for personal growth and transformation. It's about understanding that you are not a victim of your past, but the creator of your future. When we embrace this understanding of karma, we begin to take full responsibility for our lives. No longer do we blame others for our misfortunes or feel like helpless victims of circumstance. Instead, we look inward and ask ourselves the questions that lead to growth and transformation. What can I do to change my response? How can I approach this situation with a different mindset? How can I act with kindness, even in the face of difficulty? True growth begins the moment we shift our focus from external blame to internal awareness. Let me share a simple story to illustrate this. There was once a man in a small village who worked tirelessly as a farmer. Year after year, he toiled in his fields, planting seeds and caring for his crops, yet they never seemed to flourish. Frustrated and desperate, he sought answers from a wise old monk who happened to pass through the village. "Master," he asked, "why do my crops always fail? What am I doing wrong?" The monk smiled and gently replied, "Have you ever stopped to consider the seeds you're planting, not just in your soil, but in your heart and mind? Are you sowing seeds of kindness, patience, and gratitude, or seeds of frustration, fear, and anger?" The farmer paused, reflecting on the monk's words. He realized that his internal state, clouded by impatience, worry, and resentment, was affecting everything around him, including his work. With time, he began to change his mindset. He practiced patience, cultivated gratitude, and approached his life with a sense of peace. Slowly but surely, not only did his crops begin to thrive, but so did his sense of fulfillment. The lesson was clear. It wasn't just his external actions that needed change, it was his inner world that had to shift. This is the essence of karma. It's not just about what happens to us, it's about how we respond. The universe mirrors our energy, our intentions, and our actions. So if you're in the midst of a difficult time, remember, you are not powerless. You are not stuck. You are the one who shapes your path through the choices you make, the mindset you carry, and the energy you put into the world. Karma reminds us that everything is interconnected. Even the smallest actions ripple outward, influencing the course of our lives. With each new decision, whether it's choosing forgiveness over resentment, compassion over judgment, or presence over distraction, you have the power to rewrite your story. You can plant new seeds at any moment and begin again. Seeking inner strength through meditation. In the midst of life's chaos, when the world around you feels unstable or overwhelming, it's easy to forget that your greatest source of strength lies within. So often we turn to external solutions, people, achievements, material comforts, hoping they will bring peace and stability. But true strength doesn't come from outside. It arises from a quiet, steady place within you. And one of the most powerful ways to access that inner reservoir is through meditation. Meditation is not about escaping reality or silencing your thoughts entirely. It's about learning to sit with yourself, to observe what arises in your mind and body, and to create space between your thoughts and your reactions. It teaches you to find stillness in the storm and clarity in the noise. With regular practice, meditation helps you build resilience, not by making your problems disappear, but by giving you the calm and clarity to face them wisely. When you sit in meditation, even for just a few minutes each day, you begin to reconnect with your breath, your body, and your awareness. You start to notice the patterns of your mind, how often it races, worries, or criticizes. And with that awareness comes freedom, the freedom to choose a different response, to release what no longer serves you, and to rest in the present moment. In time, you'll find that meditation doesn't just stay on the cushion, it begins to permeate every area of your life. You'll respond more mindfully in conversations, feel less reactive in stressful situations, and experience a deeper sense of peace, even amidst difficulty. Meditation isn't a quick fix, it's a lifelong journey. But it's one that leads to profound transformation, from anxiety to serenity, from confusion to clarity, from fear to freedom. So if you're seeking strength, don't look farther. Look inward, close your eyes, breathe deeply, and meet yourself in the stillness. In that quiet space, you will find not only peace but power, the kind of power that no one can take from you. Meditation isn't just a practice, it's a way of life. It's a tool for reconnecting with yourself, a means of quieting the noise of the world and tuning into the stillness within. In the Buddhist tradition, meditation is seen as one of the most powerful practices for building inner strength, especially during times of hardship. It's not just about sitting still with your thoughts. It's about becoming deeply aware of your mind, your emotions, and your reactions to the world around you. When we meditate, we create a space where we can observe our thoughts without judgment. We begin to notice how our minds tend to wander, how easily we get caught up in negative thinking, and how quickly stress and anxiety can take over. But here's the beautiful thing about meditation. As we learn to watch our thoughts without getting swept away by them, we gain control over how we respond to life's challenges. We stop reacting impulsively to our emotions and instead create a moment of pause, allowing ourselves to choose how we want to respond. In those moments of stillness, we begin to realize that we are not our thoughts. We are not the pain we experience, nor the anger or fear that rises within us. We are the observer, the one who can choose how to react. This is where true strength comes from, being able to face life's difficulties without being consumed by them. It's easy to believe that we need to fix everything, that we need to control every situation in order to feel safe. But in reality, control is an illusion. Life is unpredictable, and no matter how hard we try to hold on to things, they will inevitably slip away. The more we try to control, the more we set ourselves up for disappointment and suffering. Meditation teaches us to let go of that need for control. It shows us how to accept things as they are without trying to change them. This doesn't mean we stop taking action. It means we stop fighting against what is. We stop resisting the flow of life and instead learn to move with it. One of the key aspects of meditation is mindfulness, which simply means being fully present in the moment. When we practice mindfulness, we stop worrying about the past or the future. We stop letting our minds replay past mistakes or imagine worst-case scenarios. We learn to embrace the present moment, knowing that it is the only time that truly exists. When we live in the present, we can experience life with greater clarity, less stress, and more peace. It's important to note that meditation isn't about forcing your mind to be quiet. It's not about suppressing your thoughts or pretending that everything is okay. Meditation is about being honest with yourself, acknowledging the chaos in your mind and allowing it to be there without judgment. Over time, as you continue to practice, you'll find that the mind becomes quieter and the sense of inner peace becomes more accessible. The benefits of meditation are profound, especially when you're going through a tough phase in life. In times of stress or grief, meditation can provide a refuge, a place to recharge and regain perspective. It helps you reconnect with your deeper self, beyond the layers of worry and fear. Through meditation, you realize that no matter what happens in the world around you, you always have a source of inner strength to draw from. This inner strength doesn't mean that you'll never feel pain or sadness again. It doesn't mean that life will become perfect or free of struggle. But it does mean that you'll have the tools to face whatever comes your way with greater ease and grace. You'll learn to face challenges without being overwhelmed by them. You'll hold space for your emotions without letting them dictate your actions. Many people find that when they start meditating, it's not easy at first. Their minds are noisy, and they might feel frustrated or discouraged. This is perfectly normal. The goal of meditation isn't to achieve a perfect silent mind. It's to develop awareness and acceptance over time. The practice of meditation becomes like a muscle. The more you practice, the stronger your inner peace becomes. And as your peace grows, so does your ability to handle life's challenges. The beauty of meditation is that it can be practiced anywhere, at any time. You don't need to sit in a special position or be in a quiet room. You can practice mindfulness while walking, cooking, or even just sitting in traffic. It's about bringing your attention fully to whatever you're doing in that moment. And through this practice, you begin to realize that life itself can be a form of meditation if you are fully present in it. As you continue to meditate, you might also begin to notice a shift in how you relate to other people. When we are centered within ourselves, we are less likely to be triggered by the actions of others. We become more compassionate, not because we try to be, but because we understand that everyone is struggling in some way. We begin to approach others with more patience, kindness, and empathy. This shift is powerful. It's a reminder that the strength we are cultivating through meditation is not just for ourselves, it's for others too. When we find peace within ourselves, we are better able to help others find peace as well. The strength that comes from meditation is not about being tough or unshakable. It's about being gentle, about being resilient in the face of adversity while still holding space for the vulnerability that exists in all of us. In the end, meditation is not just about surviving difficult times. It's about transforming them. It's about taking the pain, the struggle, and the uncertainty and turning them into opportunities for growth and wisdom. Through meditation, we learn to see life as it is, not as something to escape or control, but as something to experience with open-hearted awareness. And in that experience, we find the strength to carry on, no matter how heavy the weight may seem. So, as you continue your journey, remember that the power to face life's challenges lies not in avoiding them, but in embracing them with mindfulness, acceptance, and inner strength. Meditation is the key to unlocking that power. And with each practice, you are one step closer to becoming the strongest, most resilient version of yourself. The role of compassion in overcoming hardships. When life presents its hardest challenges, there is one force that has the power to transform even the darkest moments into opportunities for growth. Compassion. Compassion is often misunderstood as a simple feeling of sympathy for others. But in Buddhism, it's far more than that. It's the recognition of suffering, the desire to alleviate it, and the willingness to act with kindness, not only toward others, but also toward ourselves. It's about embracing the pain that comes our way and responding with understanding, patience, and love. Imagine for a moment being in the middle of a storm. The winds are howling, the rain is relentless, and the thunder seems to echo the chaos inside your mind. In those moments, it's easy to feel completely lost and overwhelmed. But what if, instead of fighting the storm, you decided to embrace it? What if, instead of pushing against the discomfort, you allowed it to be a part of your experience, without judgment or resistance? That is the essence of compassion, the willingness to be with the pain, to sit with the discomfort without letting it define or break you. When we face difficult times, we often become trapped in a cycle of self-criticism. Thoughts like, "I should have done this differently," "Why is this happening to me?" or "I'm not strong enough to handle this," begin to spiral. These internal narratives can amplify our suffering, making the storm within feel even more unrelenting. But compassion has the power to break that cycle. It teaches us that it's okay to feel weak, vulnerable, or lost. These feelings do not make us broken, they make us human. When we begin to offer ourselves the same kindness and understanding we so freely give to others, something profound happens. Healing begins. Compassion creates a gentle space where judgment fades and growth can take root. In Buddhism, the teachings of loving kindness, metta, and compassion, karuna, are not just soft ideals, they are powerful, transformative forces. The Buddha taught that compassion is not a passive feeling, but an active practice. It invites us to not only face our own pain with tenderness, but also to open our hearts to the suffering of others. And yet, perhaps the most overlooked aspect of compassion is the one we owe to ourselves. In the rush to care for others, we often forget that we too are worthy of love and care. But without self-compassion, true healing remains out of reach. We cannot give from an empty heart. We must first nourish ourselves. Mindfulness plays a crucial role in this process. When we are mindful, we become fully present with our thoughts, feelings, and sensations, without trying to change or judge them. This awareness allows us to see our suffering not as something to avoid, but as something to understand. Pain, like all things, is impermanent. It arises, it stays for a while, and then it passes. Mindfulness helps us witness this cycle without becoming consumed by it. And from that place of stillness and awareness, compassion naturally arises. We begin to respond to our pain with gentleness, offering ourselves the grace we need to heal. So what does compassion look like in everyday life? Sometimes it's as simple as pausing to place your hand over your heart and acknowledge, "This is hard." It might be speaking to yourself with kindness when you feel inadequate, or allowing yourself to rest without guilt. It might be reaching out for help when you feel alone, or forgiving yourself for the mistakes you can't change. Compassion doesn't need to be grand. Often it's found in the quiet, tender moments when you choose to stay with yourself instead of running away. In all its forms, compassion is a powerful tool, not for escaping suffering, but for transforming it. Through it, we learn that we can meet life's storms not with resistance, but with the open arms of understanding and love. The more we practice compassion, the more we begin to see that our struggles are not unique. They are part of the shared human experience. Everyone, at some point in their life, faces hardship, whether it's loss, disappointment, fear, or loneliness. These are all things that unite us. When we recognize that our suffering is not isolated, we begin to develop a sense of interconnectedness with others. This understanding can soften the walls of isolation that often arise when we are going through tough times. One of the most powerful ways to practice compassion is through acts of service. When we take the focus off of ourselves and direct our energy toward helping others, we often find that our own suffering feels lighter. Helping someone else, whether through a kind word, a small gesture, or simply listening, has a profound effect on our own hearts. It reminds us that we are not alone in our struggles, and that by lifting others up, we too are lifted. Compassion also teaches us about patience. When we are in the midst of a difficult time, it's easy to want everything to change immediately. We may feel desperate for a solution, for relief, for peace. But compassion reminds us that healing takes time. It is a slow process, one that cannot be rushed. By being patient with ourselves, we give ourselves the space to grow and to learn. Just as a flower blooms in its own time, so too does our healing. And the more we nurture ourselves with compassion, the more we allow ourselves to unfold at our own pace. Another important aspect of compassion is forgiveness. Forgiveness is not just about letting go of the hurt that others have caused us. It's about releasing ourselves from the burden of resentment. Holding on to anger and bitterness only deepens our suffering. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is an act of self-liberation. It frees us from the pain of the past and opens up the possibility of healing. This doesn't mean we condone what was done to us, but it means we choose to release the hold that anger and hurt have on our lives. As we cultivate compassion, we begin to notice something remarkable. Our perspective on life shifts. We start to see challenges as opportunities for growth, pain as a teacher, and suffering as a part of life that can lead to deeper wisdom. Compassion allows us to embrace all of it, not just the good, but the hard, the painful, and the uncomfortable. It teaches us that we are strong enough to face whatever comes our way, and that no matter how difficult the journey, we do not have to walk it alone. It's important to remember that compassion is not always easy. There will be times when it feels hard to be kind to ourselves, when our pain seems too great to bear. But even in those moments, it's crucial to remember that compassion is a practice. And like any practice, it requires patience and persistence. Some days will be harder than others, but each step you take toward compassion is a step toward healing. So as you navigate through the difficult phases of life, remember the power of compassion. It is the balm that soothes the wounds of the heart, the light that guides us through the darkness. It is the force that allows us to rise above our suffering and to emerge stronger, more connected, and more at peace with ourselves and the world around us. In times of hardship, compassion is the reminder that we are not defined by our pain, but by our ability to love and care for ourselves and others, no matter the circumstances. In the end, compassion is what binds us together. It's the thread that connects us all, reminding us that we are never truly alone in our suffering. Through compassion, we find the courage to face our challenges with grace and discover the strength to overcome even the most difficult times. So, in moments of darkness, always remember, you have the power to bring light, not only to others, but to yourself. Compassion is the key that unlocks the door to healing, the path of gratitude and contentment. The path to finding peace and surviving the bad phases of life is often not about trying to change everything around us, but about learning how to change ourselves, our mindset, our perspective. One of the most powerful tools in this journey is gratitude. It may seem simple, but gratitude holds immense power, a power that can shift your entire outlook on life and help you endure even the darkest of times. Imagine for a moment that you are sitting in the middle of a storm. The winds are howling, the rain is relentless, and everything feels like it's falling apart. It's hard to see anything good when you're in the midst of such chaos. But what if you could find something to be grateful for in that very moment? What if, despite the storm, you could see a silver lining, something small but significant that reminds you that life is still worth living? Maybe it's the warmth of a cup of tea in your hands, the support of a friend, or the simple beauty of the rain falling outside. This is what gratitude does. It allows you to see beyond the storm, to find something to hold on to, even when everything feels uncertain. And it's not just about being thankful for the good moments in life, but also for the challenges. In Buddhism, there is a deep understanding that suffering and joy are interwoven. They are not separate. One cannot exist without the other. So the pain we feel during tough times is not something to avoid or fight against. Instead, it is a part of our human experience, something that can teach us, grow us, and ultimately lead us to a deeper sense of peace. Gratitude is also a reminder that nothing is permanent. When life feels tough, it's easy to think that it will never get better, that the weight of the world will always be on your shoulders. But as the Buddhist teachings tell us, all things are impermanent. The storm will pass, the bad phase will come to an end, and when it does, you will have changed. You will have learned something about yourself, about your resilience, about your ability to survive and thrive. Contentment is the natural companion to gratitude. It's about finding peace with what you have right now in this very moment. Often we get caught up in the idea that we need more success, more possessions, more validation from others to be happy. But true happiness doesn't come from what we acquire. It comes from accepting what is, just as it is, without the constant need to chase after something else. Contentment is not about settling for less or giving up on your dreams. It's about finding joy in the present, in the simple moments of life, and in the knowledge that in this very moment, everything you need is already within you. It's about letting go of the idea that happiness is something that is always just out of reach, and instead realizing that it is something that can be found right where you are, in the life you're living right now. When we learn to appreciate what we have instead of always focusing on what we lack, our hearts begin to open. We begin to see the beauty in everyday things, the way the sun rises each morning, the sound of birds singing, the kindness of a stranger. These small moments of beauty are not separate from our happiness. They are the very foundation of it. Gratitude and contentment teach us to be present, to see what is here instead of constantly wishing for something else. Buddhism teaches that the mind often clouds our perception of reality. We are conditioned to focus on the negative, to dwell on what isn't working, and to fixate on the things that cause us pain. But when we shift our focus to gratitude, we begin to see life through a different lens. The challenges we face no longer define us. They are simply part of our journey, and we can choose how to respond to them. In every difficult situation, there is an opportunity to practice gratitude. Maybe you are struggling with a difficult relationship. Instead of focusing on the ways that person has hurt you, try to find something to appreciate about them. Maybe it's their kindness in other areas of life, or the fact that they've taught you something important. When you shift your perspective, the burden of anger and resentment starts to lighten. Gratitude gives you the freedom to let go of negative emotions and free yourself from the weight they carry. It's the same with contentment. In moments of scarcity or lack, instead of feeling frustrated by what you don't have, focus on what you do have. If you are struggling financially, appreciate the roof over your head and the food on your table. If you are feeling lonely, appreciate the relationships you do have, even if they are few. The more you practice contentment, the less you will feel the need for external circumstances to change in order to be happy. You will realize that happiness is not found in the future, but in the present moment. One of the most profound teachings in Buddhism is the middle way. It is the path of balance, of not leaning too far into extremes, whether it be desire or denial, indulgence or deprivation. In the turbulence of everyday life, it's easy to find ourselves swinging wildly between longing for what we don't have and feeling dissatisfied with what we do. But the middle way gently reminds us that true peace does not lie in having more or in running from pain. It lies in learning to be content with enough. This isn't about settling for less. It's about realizing that we already have so much. When we stop chasing after excess and instead begin to appreciate what is present, we find a kind of completeness that external circumstances can never truly provide. This principle becomes especially powerful during difficult times. Life doesn't always align with our hopes or desires, but it often presents us with exactly what we need for growth. When we meet life with gratitude and contentment, we open ourselves to the deeper lessons hidden within our struggles. We learn to cultivate patience when things don't move at our pace. We practice acceptance when outcomes don't go our way. And most importantly, we strengthen our inner resolve, learning that peace isn't found in perfection, but in presence. Gratitude and contentment also deepen our sense of connection. When we start appreciating the simple blessings around us, a warm meal, a kind word, a moment of stillness, we begin to see how interconnected everything is. We realize that we're not alone, even in our darkest hours. Our pain, while deeply personal, is also part of the human experience. Others have felt it, are feeling it, and will feel it too. This realization creates space for compassion and community. It reminds us that we are all part of a larger whole, and that by supporting one another, we strengthen ourselves. What's truly transformative about gratitude and contentment is that they shift the source of our happiness from the outside world to the inside. We stop waiting for life to get better before we feel peace. We begin to generate that peace within ourselves. No longer are we at the mercy of unpredictable events. We become the authors of our own experience. And in that shift lies immense power. The world may still be chaotic, but we no longer have to be. As you continue walking through your own challenges, remember that gratitude and contentment aren't abstract ideals. They are daily practices, intentional choices you make, moment by moment. Even on the hardest days, you can pause to find something to be thankful for. Even in your lowest points, you can acknowledge that you are still breathing, still growing, still capable of love. And with every act of gratitude, with every moment of contentment, you build a life anchored not in fear or longing, but in peace. The storm may rage on outside, but within you become steady. With each step, you'll discover that even the harshest season will eventually pass. And when it does, you'll emerge stronger, wiser, and more deeply in tune with the beauty of life as it is. In the end, the path of gratitude and contentment isn't just about surviving life's hardships. It's about transforming them. It's about turning pain into wisdom and challenges into opportunities for growth. And when you look back on your journey, you'll see that even in the darkest times, you are always being guided by the light of gratitude and contentment, finding purpose in pain and adversity. Life, as we know it, is not without its trials. Some days it may feel like we're walking through a thick fog, not knowing where to turn, not understanding why things are happening the way they are. When the weight of the world presses down on us, it can be hard to see beyond our immediate suffering. But what if, just for a moment, we could shift our perspective? What if, instead of seeing pain and hardship as things to avoid, we could learn to embrace them? In Buddhism, there is a teaching that may seem paradoxical at first. Pain is not something we need to run away from. In fact, it is through facing our pain head-on that we find the greatest opportunities for growth. This may sound counterintuitive, especially when we live in a world that encourages us to avoid discomfort at all costs. But the truth is, our suffering contains the seeds of transformation, and the challenges we face can become the most valuable teachers in our lives. Think about it. Have you ever gone through something difficult only to realize later on that it taught you something important? Maybe you learned resilience, or perhaps you discovered strength within yourself that you didn't even know existed. It's these very moments of hardship that shape our character and help us become the people we are meant to be. Now, I'm not saying that we should go looking for pain. Of course, it's natural to want peace, happiness, and comfort in life. But when adversity does come, and it will, we don't have to view it as the end of the road. Instead, we can choose to see it as an opportunity for something deeper. Buddhism teaches that suffering is a natural part of life. It's not something we can avoid forever, no matter how much we try. But instead of viewing it as an enemy, we can learn to treat it like a friend, one that teaches us valuable lessons along the way. One of the most powerful aspects of Buddhist philosophy is the understanding of impermanence. Everything changes, and nothing lasts forever. Not the good times, and certainly not the bad. When we are in the midst of hardship, it's easy to feel as though the pain will last forever, but the truth is, it won't. Like all things, it will pass. And with that passing comes the opportunity to heal, to learn, and to grow. So how can we find purpose in pain? The answer lies in our response to it. It's not about avoiding suffering, but about how we approach it. Buddhism teaches us that suffering can be a path to awakening. When we face difficulties with mindfulness, when we approach them with an open heart and a clear mind, we can transform them into stepping stones toward a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Imagine for a moment that your life is a garden. When you plant seeds, you don't know exactly how they'll grow. You may water them, nurture them, and care for them, but some may sprout and others may not. Similarly, in life, the seeds of wisdom and strength are planted during moments of suffering. We may not see the results immediately, but if we continue to nurture them with patience and understanding, they will grow. Over time, we will begin to see the fruits of our labor, stronger, wiser, and more compassionate versions of ourselves. But how do we begin to nurture these seeds? How do we make sure that our suffering doesn't defeat us, but instead transforms us? The key is in our mindset. Instead of focusing solely on the pain, we can choose to shift our attention to what we can learn from it. What is this hardship teaching me? What can I do to grow through this experience? It's about changing our perspective from one of victimhood to one of empowerment. Buddhism encourages us to cultivate a mindset of equanimity. This means accepting whatever comes our way, whether it's good or bad, with calmness and balance. When we are able to accept the ups and downs of life without being thrown off course, we can begin to see the purpose in all things. Even in our darkest moments, there is a lesson to be learned. And that lesson may just be the key to unlocking a new level of peace and understanding in our lives. It's important to remember that finding purpose in pain doesn't mean we have to like it. It doesn't mean that we should pretend everything is fine when it's not. It's okay to feel upset, frustrated, or lost. But it does mean that we can choose how we respond. We can choose to learn from our suffering rather than letting it define us. We can choose to see our pain as an opportunity to grow rather than something that holds us back. Buddhism also teaches us about compassion, both for others and for ourselves. When we go through a difficult time, it's easy to become hard on ourselves. We might think that we should be stronger or that we should have handled things differently. But instead of beating ourselves up, we can choose to treat ourselves with kindness and understanding. After all, we are all human, and it's okay to feel vulnerable. It's okay to struggle. What matters is how we respond to those struggles. Another important teaching is the concept of interconnectedness. Everything in the universe is connected. Our suffering is not isolated. It is a part of the greater whole. When we experience pain, we are reminded that others are going through similar struggles. This can help us develop a deeper sense of empathy and compassion for those around us. By recognizing our shared humanity, we can begin to find meaning in our pain, not only for ourselves, but also for the benefit of others. As we continue to navigate through the tough times, it's important to remember that healing is a process. It's not something that happens overnight. But each day, as we take small steps toward acceptance and understanding, we are moving closer to finding purpose in our pain. The key is to keep going, even when it feels hard. Keep showing up for yourself. Keep being kind to yourself and keep looking for the lessons that lie hidden within your struggles. Ultimately, the purpose of our pain is not to break us, but to build us. Through suffering, we are given the opportunity to transform. We are given the chance to shed old patterns, beliefs, and attachments that no longer serve us. As we emerge from the darkness, we do so as stronger, wiser, and more compassionate individuals. And in that transformation, we find the true purpose of our pain, to help us awaken to our full potential and to live lives of greater wisdom and peace. Remember, no matter what you're going through right now, this too shall pass. And when it does, you will be stronger, wiser, and more connected to the world around you. The pain you're feeling today is not the end of your story. It's simply a chapter in your journey. Keep moving forward, knowing that every step, no matter how difficult, brings you closer to the person you are meant to become, transforming suffering into wisdom. As we come to the final part of our journey, let's pause and reflect on everything we've learned so far. It's been quite a path, hasn't it? We started by acknowledging the reality of suffering, and together we explored how to face life's toughest challenges with the wisdom of Buddhism. Now we're at the most crucial point. How do we transform our suffering into something greater than ourselves? When we find ourselves in the middle of hardship, it's easy to feel like we're stuck in a never-ending storm. We might think that this suffering is all there is, that the pain we're experiencing will define us forever. But that's not true. This moment of struggle is just that, a moment. It will pass. It will transform. And if we allow it, we can transform with it. Buddhism teaches us that suffering isn't something we should try to avoid. In fact, it's a natural part of life. Everyone faces difficulty at some point. But what Buddhism also teaches us is that this suffering doesn't have to control us. We have the power to use it as a tool for growth, for wisdom, and for deeper understanding. You see, suffering can be the great teacher if we are willing to learn from it. The key is to change the way we see it. Instead of looking at our pain as an obstacle to happiness, we can start to see it as the very thing that opens our hearts and minds to the truths of life. When we embrace suffering instead of fighting it, we discover new depths of resilience and compassion within ourselves. Think about it for a moment. How many times have you been through a difficult experience only to look back later and realize how much you grew from it? How many times has something you once feared, something you thought would break you, actually made you stronger? This is the wisdom that suffering can bring if we are willing to look at it from a new perspective. In every moment of pain, there's an opportunity for change. In every setback, there's a lesson waiting to be learned. And the more we open ourselves to these lessons, the more we become wise. True wisdom isn't just about knowledge. It's about understanding the nature of life, of change, and of our own hearts. Wisdom is the ability to see clearly, to act with kindness, and to remain steady in the face of any storm. As you continue on your journey, remember this: suffering does not define you. What defines you is how you respond to it. Will you let your struggles harden your heart, or will you use them to soften and open it? The choice is always yours. And here's something important to remember. You are never alone in your suffering. Every person you meet, every soul you encounter, is also carrying their own burdens. Everyone has faced their own dark days. This shared experience of hardship is what connects us all. When you face your struggles with wisdom and compassion, you not only transform yourself, but also become a beacon of light for others. Your journey through suffering becomes a source of inspiration for those around you, and in turn, you contribute to the healing of the world. So how do we transform suffering into wisdom? We do it by accepting it. We do it by learning from it. And we do it by choosing to act with kindness, not just toward others, but toward ourselves. Be gentle with yourself, especially when you're facing difficult times. Allow yourself to grieve, to be angry, to feel lost, but never let those emotions define you. They're just passing clouds in the sky of your life. The sky, your true nature, remains untouched. In Buddhism, there's a practice called mindfulness that can be incredibly helpful when you're in the midst of suffering. Mindfulness is simply the act of being present with whatever is happening in the moment without judgment. It means allowing yourself to feel your emotions fully without being swept away by them. It means noticing your thoughts but not becoming entangled in them. Mindfulness teaches us that we don't need to react to everything. We don't need to control everything. Sometimes the most healing thing we can do is to simply sit with our pain, observe it gently, and allow it to move through us in its own time. Another powerful teaching in Buddhism is the concept of impermanence. Everything, including our suffering, is temporary. This too shall pass. When you're in the middle of a difficult phase, it can feel endless. But nothing in life is permanent. Just as the seasons change, so too will the challenges you face. And when you truly accept this, suffering becomes something not to resist, but to move with, like a wave that rises and eventually falls. As we bring this journey to a close, I want to leave you with one final thought. The most important part of surviving and transforming the difficult phases in your life is remembering that you have the strength to face them. You have the power to shift your relationship with pain. You have the ability to turn suffering into wisdom, into compassion, and into peace. But it starts with a choice, the choice to see your experience not as punishment, but as a path. Take a moment now to reflect on your own life. Think about the times you've struggled and gently ask yourself, what did I learn? How did I grow? And how can I use that wisdom to uplift others? Every step you take along this journey brings you closer to greater understanding, deeper peace, and lasting resilience. And when you choose to face life with an open heart, you'll find there's no storm that can truly defeat you. Thank you for being part of this journey. If you found this helpful, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more insights like this. We'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. And as always, stay peaceful, stay mindful, and remember, everything you need to survive and to thrive is already within you. May you find the strength, wisdom, and peace you seek.